Alrighty, I think we're recording. So I know I'm a minute early, but we'll go ahead and get started. So today's session is all about strategies for staying in touch with leads that either say they're not interested or they ghost you. Now, in this instance, I'm going to be talking about strategies other than calls and scripting and dialogue. My focus is on the back end, sort of more conservative, behind the scenes ways to stay in touch with these not interested people. Starting off with the tools you already have available in your CRM, and then going outside of that and discussing potential outside tools you can consider depending on your goals, your needs, and your budget. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and walk through some ideas. Just make sure I share the right thing. So the first thing you can do is take advantage of any list of leads that have ghosted you per se. Maybe they're old leads you never reached, old leads you've had a conversation with, but you never had a, they ghosted you, they stopped answering your calls, and you don't really know where to go from there, but you want to stay in front of them and you want to provide value, you want to be in front of them, you want them to know you and trust you as the go-to real estate professional. So in order to do that, the first thing you can obviously do with your CRM is send them an email. That's the easiest way to get in front of them without being too pushy. And I'll share some email ideas of what you can send to these leads. But before you do, you really need to make sure that you follow email deliverability best practices. So I'm going to do like a very high level overview of this. In the future, we'll have an email deliverability expert chime in, do a deep dive session on that. But for now, I'll do a very high level overview of what that means. So the first step in making sure that you follow best practices for email deliverability and ensuring that your emails actually get delivered and you're not ruining your reputation is scanning your existing database of whoever it is that you plan to email, whether it's in batch or via like a batch email or mass email or newsletter or through drip campaigns that you plan to assign leads. Make sure you scrub that email database to search for any bad emails, bounced emails, or what's called a spam trap. So if you're unfamiliar with what that means, a spam trap means that these email addresses have been labeled as emails who often label senders as spammers, and that will hurt your reputation. Same with bounces. If you send so many emails that to email addresses that get bounced, then that hurts your reputation. And so what does that mean for you? When you get so many emails that bounce back or so many emails that you send that get marked as spam, I'm sure you've been on the receiving end of a spammer and you either block them or mark them as spam. When that happens, you're hurting that sender's reputation. And as a result, you're telling that sender's domain email provider, whether it's Google, Gmail, whatever it is, you're telling that provider, hey, this person is sketchy. You shouldn't let this person email anybody anymore. And the more knocks that they get, and it doesn't take very many today anymore, the more knocks that they get, the less likely that, one, they'll show up in your primary inbox and instead show up in promotion folders, but two, they'll show up in spam, or three, just flat out get blocked and get their account completely suspended or blocked from sending emails, period. So you want to avoid that. And the first step to avoiding that is by scanning or scrubbing your email database for those bounce backs, invalid emails, or spam traps. So I really like this tool. I'm having trouble. Let's see. It said I wasn't able to share. Let's try one more time. Maybe it just doesn't like to share that specific. Okay, there it goes. I really like this tool called Quick Email Verification. You can use it for free if you have 100 or less a day. I believe it's 100 a day, but you can drive yourself crazy if you have a large database. And then you can buy credits, and it's really cheap to buy the credits and do it that way. I've already done it for a number of leads. You can see I've done it for about 30 or 36 leads. But basically, you can create a free account. It's just quickemailverification.com. And when you create an account, you'll be taken to this exact page where you can drop a CSV file. So depending on the CRM you use, I use Follow Up Boss. Let me switch screens. Give me 1 second. Whenever you pull up Follow Up Boss, depending on how you plan to locate the list of leads that you want to reach out to through email, I would recommend filtering it out by stage. So maybe these are people still staged lead, or maybe they're in your nurture stages, like hot, warm, or cold. Filter by email is labeled as good, and filter by last communication more than 30 days ago, or something like that. And you can export this database. Now, in this case, I've got 2,600 people that match this criteria, and I only get 100 free. So that's where I had mentioned you can certainly do it just for free with quick email verification, where it's 100 a day. You'll just kind of drive yourself crazy doing it, although I have spoken to people who do that. Or you can just buy the credits that are cheap and do it one time. So then in Follow Up Boss, you'll select all by clicking this checkbox, and then make sure that you actually select all. And then what I like to do is before you export in the columns, I like to only show email and then deselect everything else. And to know if you've deselected everything else, next to all of these columns here, make sure nothing else is shown. So you can see here, details is only selecting one, but nothing else has a number next to it. So now that I've selected one, it's showing one, but details is only showing email. So I've selected all, and then you'll click the export button, and then Follow Up Boss will export the database, and then you can download it. And then you can upload it to quick email verification. Once you do, it'll pop up this little box here on the bottom with a loading bar of showing you the status of your download. And then you can download, once it is done, you can download the results. Now, in this case, my results came back clean. All 26 emails, I believe it was, came back as good, as valid. So I didn't really have a good example to share with you today of an example email that came back as invalid. But if it did, there's a column. Let me actually pull up that result and show you what I mean. There's a column here. I've removed a lot of the columns because there's so many, but there's a column, it's column F, that says result. That'll say the result of the email. And so all of mine say valid, but you can have different types of results like bounce or spam trap, like I have mentioned, or invalid. So for any of the ones that resulted in invalid, depending on how large the list is, you can either manually go into Follow Up Boss and adjust the profile to remove the email address manually, or if it's a large list, what you can do is filter the CSV file to only to remove all of the valid responses and only show the invalids and the spams and the bounces, to where you have just two columns. The first column is the email address, and then the second column are the valids, the second column is the invalids. And then in Follow Up Boss, you'll upload that database by going to admin, import, and import those contacts. And then after you import those contacts, Follow Up Boss will find the existing record that was already there. Whenever you import, select that column that indicated invalid or bounced, make that a tag. And that way, when Follow Up Boss finds the existing record that already matches that email address, it then adds that tag to that profile. So now that you know, if you're going to batch email, or if you're going to send an action plan to someone, that you exclude anyone with those specific tags. So that's the first step towards reaching the goal of email best practices. The second step is not using a free email account. And the third basic step is following the email domain verification and follow boss. Not using a free email account like at gmail.com, at yahoo.com, at AOL.com. I'm a big fan of using Google Workspace for that. Then once you set that up, now let's talk about a strategy. There are two strategies I've mentioned for email. The first one is just like one-time send batch email and follow boss, or a drip campaign. If you send the batch email, you can mass select a large list of people and send the batch email. If you do the drip campaign, as of today, you cannot batch send a drip campaign and follow boss. But maybe rumor has it that it will be coming next year, supposedly, in Automations 2.0, and that will be a game changer. So an idea is, if you are a client of Key Technology, you have an action plan called Stale. Let me find it here, actually. So under admin action plans is Stale. We call it KTS Stale. You can consider this sort of like a revive campaign that can be used for any type of lead that's like a buyer or a seller. It can be used for either scenario. And the goal is to revive those leads to get a response. And if you're going to send a batch email, you can use the first email template in this drip campaign, in this action plan, as an example of what you can send in the batch email. Or of course, you can create your own drip campaign and assign the drip campaign to try to revive these ghosted leads. So what I like about emails is a bit more passive. It's not as aggressive as a phone call, but you shouldn't 100% rely on email or text message to revive or stay in touch with these leads. That's why I'm going to be covering other different methods. And hopefully you will use a number of these on top of calling to convert and stay in front of people. That's the only way that you'll convert leads, is if you use multiple methods to keep in front of people. So here is the first initial template from the action plan, sort of a freebie that you can either use to create your own drip campaign or use to send in a batch email. So how open-minded are you? So people like to consider themselves open-minded. So they're going to be curious when they see that subject line. That phrase right there is very much inspired by Phil Jones, author of Exactly What to Say and Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. And then the email says, "Hi, first name. I understand people's plans are constantly changing. Out of curiosity, how open-minded are you to the possibility of buying or selling a home in the near future?" Now, before you send a batch email or a drip campaign, make sure these are people that are opt-in leads, whether they're people you've previously talked to or they've opted in from your website or opted in from a registration. Do not batch email or drip email anyone that's just like a random bot list. That goes against the terms and conditions of Follow Up Boss. That goes against the terms and conditions of the email provider you use. That goes against all compliance. People have not given you permission to drip or market to them if they did not opt in or have a conversation with you. So if batch email is the way you want to go, then create the list that you want to create. The example I gave you was stage includes lead plus any of your nurture stages with an email is good. Last communication more than 30 days ago. I'm going to be safer. I'm going to choose stages lead, and I'm going to do created more than 60 days ago, where email is good and last communication was more than 30 days ago. And then I would select all after scrubbing again, batch email, and then pull up the stale email template. Follow Up Boss can be a little bit slow in pulling up and loading email templates because I have so many like this. And if you watched the previous session, then you'll know that I like to include all email addresses so that it emails all of the profiles. And then click preview. Oh, and then who to send from. If you're logged in on an admin account or owner account, If you send this batch email, it'll default to sending it from you. If you don't want to get all the replies, be sure to change it to send from the assigned agent. And then if you notice here, follow-up says that it will attach the sender's signature from my settings to the bottom of the email. And if you missed that session on setting up settings and the signature, be sure to watch that session for best practices there. And then you can preview the email. Again, best practice here is to use plain text email in batch emails with limited links. That gets the highest deliverability rate, highest response rate. And then let's go ahead and schedule the email. So something interesting is something I've heard and been prompted several times by an email deliverability expert that we will most definitely have on a future session. His name is Alex Shakov, and I've known him for several years now. He mentioned that if you want to stand out and get noticed in a person's email inbox beyond following best practices so that you actually get your email delivered, beyond following different ideas for cool subject line hooks and things of that nature, beyond that, think about the time of day that you send it. He said that the heaviest email traffic time is within the first 10 minutes of the hour, on the hour, no matter what hour of the day you choose. So follow-up defaults to things like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. When you pick a day and time, it defaults to on the hour every hour. But that's when email traffic is the heaviest, within the first 10 minutes of an hour. So if you want to stand out, don't be within the majority, be within the minority and send your email after the first 10 minutes. So I would schedule the email 20 minutes after the hour. So like at 2:20 p.m. instead. So that's just a little tip there. So email is the first thing you can do. After you follow best practices, you can drip email them or batch email them. Hopefully you found that freebie helpful. The next thing you can do is auto nurture them. And I'll show you some tools in a second. But before I do, I want you to try to locate sellers that are hiding in plain sight. So you and I both know that if you generate leads, buyer leads, a certain percentage of those buyer leads are sellers. Now, depending on who you talk to, especially with these tech companies, they're going to give you some different outrageous statistics. Someone told me it was like 70% of your database are homeowners, but I think it just depends on the type of ads you're running and the demographic and the location you're in. I personally think 70% is really high. I think it will be closer to like 40% of the database of leads that you receive from online lead generation have a home to sell that are buyer leads. But there is a purpose behind this. But first, I highly recommend locating and finding leads that have a property that they own. And there are so this is the first suggestion that requires an outside tool besides quick email verification. There are a few different tools you can use. The first one I'm going to mention is a standalone tool where this is all that they do. All that they do is try to find an address. And that tool is called Smart Alto. I don't get paid by them to say this or to mention their name. But Smart Alto integrates with Follow Boss. And if you if Smart Alto finds an address based on the email or the phone number of the lead, then it's going to add the address, but it's also going to add other very important information, such as how long they've been in the house, whether or not they have a mortgage, the estimated value of the property, and other information like if it's an absentee owner or if they actually live there. And then you can create smarter lists in Follow Boss, which I believe the team at Smart Alto will help you create those lists for segmenting the database to like downsizers based on the age and size of the home, because it also puts in the square footage, for example, or if it can find it, how many stories, or it will find like the millennials that are likely to move based on how many years they've been in the home, things like that. And then you can utilize the automations they've provided based on the demographics that match to have those drip campaigns. Now, to be candid with you, the automations that have been created by Smart Alto, they're a good start, but I would highly recommend adjusting the verbiage. I've actually started creating some automations for tools like Smart Alto. There's another one that I recommend looking into, but it's not a standalone. They offer other features as well. Fellow also does something similar where it tries to find information, not as detailed as Smart Alto does. Fellow does find information like the address and the estimated property valuation and some other details, but not like the age of the person, for example. But it does find out if they have a mortgage, I believe, and lots of other things. But I have been creating some best practice automations, hopefully, that we can use soon, because it's on the roadmap for Fellow to have the ability to tag the leads in Follow Boss so that we can trigger automations based on people matching specific parameters, such as, oh, they might be a downsizer. Let's trigger a downsizer automation. Oh, they may be, I don't know. There's a lot of different scenarios. So finding address, first tool to look into is Smart Alto. That's a standalone. That's all that they do. But Smart Alto, only use it for your opt-in leads. They will only search opt-in leads, and it integrates with Follow Boss, so it searches your Follow Boss database. And it also integrates with Sierra. So Sierra and Interactive, same thing. 2 is Fellow, but that is not a standalone tool. They also have other tools. And Fellow is quite an investment, but I do believe if you set it up properly and take the time to invest and learn it, it can be worth it. And if you have a database large enough to use it. The third tool that you can use to find addresses, which again is not a standalone tool as a part of it, it's one of the tools that's available, is Agent Legend. Agent Legend will also locate the address, and it also has different types of propensity scores for the lead based on first party and third party data. So what I mean by that is first party data is based on their activity with opening your emails in Follow Boss and looking at your website activity from your IDX. Third party data is similar to like what you're probably familiar with hearing about, like Revaluate. Third party data is like they're searching data outside of Follow Boss. So it combines the two and creates a propensity score. Fellow also has a propensity score, but look into all three. If you're looking for a standalone to find addresses, look into Smart Alto. So the reason why I mentioned finding addresses is you can then target these people more specifically in a few different ways. The first way is through an auto nurture tool like Real Scout or Fellow. So I am personally a super fan of Real Scout and Fellow. Real Scout's auto nurture tool is awesome because you can automatically import either all of your leads from your CRM, from Follow Boss, or from Sierra, or they integrate with other CRMs, or you can designate a tag and only people tagged enter Real Scout. And what Real Scout does is it reads the data that's from Follow Boss. And if Real Scout sees a property address connected to the lead, it's going to auto nurture the lead by automatically sending them a automated property valuation report every month. And I believe later on, Chase will do a deep dive session into Real Scout, but the goal of Real Scout's property valuation report is to start a conversation with the lead and to intentionally start confusion with the lead, because we all know that automated valuation reports are not accurate. That's not the goal of any automated valuation tool. The goal of any automated valuation tool is to be a conversation starter. And whenever you use the automated valuation tool, not only is that a way to get engagement by getting clicks and by providing value, but then you can create a behavior-based automation. When they look at that automated valuation report, you can create automation in Follow Boss. So For example, we use that as a conversation starter. For example, I swiped and stealed this very initial email template from Ryan Young at Fellow. This one has gotten a very high response rate. You may or may not like this template, but the stats don't lie that people respond very well to this, and it gets a high response rate where it says, thanks for taking a look. Out of curiosity, was it too high, too low, or just right? We used to send this one first, which explains that it's just a starting point and it may be off, la da da. But this one gets a higher response rate. So take it as you'd like, whether or not you want to use this one. But the data is showing that this one gets a higher response rate. The simpler 2-sentence question email gets a higher response rate. And we send something similar via text message. So you can create an automation with this tool like Real Scout to say, okay, when that Real Scout tag gets added in Follow-Up Boss with, I think it goes like Real Scout home value viewed, something like that, then trigger the action plan, trigger the automation to send these emails. And this campaign in particular, we run it for just under a year, and it gets a 75% response rate when we combine email and text drip, when we sprinkle in text messages in between. And we use this automated evaluation report as a way to prompt clicks, and then those clicks add a tag in Follow-Up Boss. Then we trigger a drip in Follow-Up Boss, which then increases our chances of getting a response. But then we track that behavior in Follow-Up Boss through a smart list, through filters to track that activity. Now, this is a bad example account because I'm not using Real Scout in my account. But what you would do essentially is you would create a smart list based on a tag, where a tag includes, it was either like Real Scout HVA viewed, I believe it is. There are so many great tags that we utilize in our smart lists for our clients who use our done for you setup. But it would be like Real Scout HVA viewed, tag included with activity was less than 14 days ago with a good phone number, with last communication less than 3 days ago, 7 days ago, whatever it is, with a good phone number. And now you've got the automation that started in the background to help supplement, to help get a response, but then you're being prompted in the front end to call them because they looked at the evaluation report, and now you've got a better reason to call other than just a general follow-up. Another reason why I like Real Scout is that's just one of the 3 ways it auto nurtures a lead. The second way is if it's not a seller, but it's a buyer lead, and there has been previous search activity from either from Real Scout or from your IDX provider. Real Scout sees that search activity and creates a property search for them in Real Scout and uses has a language learning model. So it's not a typical property alert. It uses more natural language in the email that gets a higher engagement rate. And when people engage, we create an automation and then push people to another smart list. And then the third way auto nurtures is if Real Scout doesn't see an address, if Real Scout can't see past search history, then it's going to set up the lead on a general market activity report so that the lead's getting something. And that also gets a high engagement rate. And again, when they look at that market activity report, we trigger an automation, we push them over to a smart list as well. And there are a bunch of other CTAs that people can click on. They can request a custom report. They can send a message over. So there's a lot of different ways people can interact with Real Scout that prompt a way to send an automation, a way to bring these people to the front for you to prioritize who to call. That way you're not just chasing any lead, you're chasing activity. So that's why Real Scout's one of my favorites. A couple of others to look at are Ylopo. Ylopo is sort of an all-in-one. This isn't the only thing it does, but they have seller nurture tools as well, property alerts as well. And when different activities happen, you can push that over to Follow-Up Boss with the automations and the smart lists and all of that stuff. And then Fellow, like I mentioned, but Fellow does not have a lot of buyer tools. They do have a couple of CTAs for buyers. The 2 that they have are for they have like a mortgage calculator and then a home affordability CTA, but they're mostly focused on sellers only. Cash offer, home valuation report, and then there's a third one as well. I can't remember what it is, but again, depending on which of the three a lead interacts with, you can trigger an automation that can generate a response, create a list in your CRM, whether it's Follow Boss or Sierra, because all three of these tools I mentioned integrate with both. And now you're chasing activity rather than just a giant list of leads. Now, the last couple of ways, which I wanted to keep this session right at 30 minutes. So I realized I've packed a lot in here. So I'm going to fly through these last couple of ways, is remarketing. Now, depending on whether or not you're already using a remarketing tool, you can certainly use like a done for you service if you do that through a service like MyLopo. I'm personally a huge fan of Street Text because you have total control over what you do, and they have proven templates that you can adjust and plug in your own images. And what I'm a huge fan of with Street Text are the remarketing bundles. I personally use it for my business, even though I'm not even a real estate agent. So I've got this retargeting ads rotation going. I have 60 ads automatically rotating on Street Text, and it changes every day. And so I've got it rotating testimonial videos. So I highly recommend, if you don't have testimonial videos, creating testimonial graphics from reviews, like pulling a headshot from the client, and then a CTA, and then a video from you about something that you have to offer, and then a testimonial. And so I didn't create this overnight. This has been 2 years in the making of having built up 60 different ads that we're continually adding to this list. But what I like about this is automated. So I'm not going into Facebook and trying to find which ad I want to stop and which ad I want to start. There is not an easy way at all whatsoever to do this in Facebook, to say, stop this ad and I'll do this one, stop this one, I'll do this one. There's just no way to do it. So that's why I love Street Text, is you can auto rotate. And then if you wanted to get really technical, I don't do it with every ad, but some of my ads have call to actions that send them to landing pages or Facebook lead ads. And so some of the Facebook lead ads push a tag over to Follow Boss from Street Text, and then that tag triggers an automation. And so I will probably say like 20 of these ads in this remarketing bundle push a tag over to Follow Boss. And so I have 20 different automations. Another thing that I love about Street Text is you not only can have a retargeting ad to retarget people coming to your website because you've added the pixel to Facebook, and you can not only retarget people who have engaged with your Facebook page and people who have been viewing your videos, but if you'll see here, it says ST lead stage, hot stage, warm stage, freezing stage, so on. Street Text in real time has a direct integration with a number of CRMs. Right now I have it integrating with Follow Boss. In real time, anytime a lead gets added to one of these stages or moves from one stage to another, they get added to that retargeting audience. So that's why I love Street Text. This is another way to stay in front of people. And Facebook is a really cheap way to remarket to leads. You can see here, I'm only spending $1 a day on my ads. So I'm spending $30 a month on Facebook remarketing ads, plus the cost of Street Text. Then the last tool I'll mention, which I don't have really much knowledge on at all, and I'm sure Chase will do a deep dive session into it later. It's called Mailbox Power. The reason I wanted to mention that one is you can send postcards very easily through Mailbox Power, and it has a, and I just realized I wasn't even sharing my screen with Street Text, so I'm sorry about that. This is what it looks like. What I was trying to share with you earlier is you can have a marketing bundle where it's rotating these different ads. The last tool I wanted to share with you that you may want to consider investing in is Mailbox Power for postcards. Like I mentioned, I don't know this tool at all. I've just heard great things about it from Chase and some others as well. It integrates with Follow Boss, and you can send postcards with QR codes and other different CTAs. But what I like about the QR codes is those QR codes can push people to the landing pages, to the various tools I mentioned earlier, whether it's to one of the tools from Real Scout One of the landing pages from Real Scout or Fellow, if you're sending a postcard to a person's house, then that QR code is most likely going to be to request to view their home valuation report. And then if they already exist in Follow Up Boss or your CRM of choice that you're using, then that tag is added to their profile, triggers an automation to start a re-engagement and get a response and adds them to a smart list. But if they don't exist in Follow Up Boss or your CRM of choice, then that lead gets added as brand new. So those are different ways to stay in touch with your database of people who either say not interested or ghosted. If they didn't say not interested, you can still stay in front of them in a number of different ways, whether it's through a drip campaign, batch emails, remarketing through street text, or another platform if you already have a remarketing platform. I'm just a huge super fan of street text. Auto nurture tools like Real Scout, Fellow, or Ylopo, but finding those addresses is really important for taking full advantage of those auto nurture tools so that you can auto nurture those sellers and the mailbox power, and then obviously the automations that trigger based on the behavior. So hope you found that helpful. And as always, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions at all.